Hello and you're welcome to the Big Tech Show with me, Adrian Weckler, the tech editor of the Irish and Sunday Independent. And this week we're talking about 5G because Three, second biggest operator in Ireland, like mobile operator, has launched 3G this week. And I said 3G, I meant 5G, of course. And here to talk to me about it is David Hennessy, who's the CTO of Three Ireland. David, you're welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Adrian. Delighted to be here.
Imagine if it was 3G. Imagine if you were launching 3G. Do you remember the launch of 3G? I remember the launch of 3G.
Oh, yeah, I was involved in that. Yeah, it was a great excitement.
That was a big deal.
Bringing data to handsets. And then
I remember showing somebody something downloading, and it was downloading, it was like, whoa, look how fast it gets to 100K.
Right. Yeah. So the original 3G launch, I think you could get up to 384 kilobits per second. And then we got this HSDPA got us up to 2 meg. And then it's just totally transformed since then.
HSDPA was hot. I remember HSDPA. It was. I loved the HSDPA. Actually, the irony is, of course, if there's some areas in Ireland, no matter what operator you're on, 3G is basically still what you're getting. And you're not sorry for it either. If you get a decent 3G signal, you're actually okay with it. But anyway, we're here to talk about 5G. You guys have just launched 5G. You've gone fairly big on it in terms of you've got presence in every county in the country. You're also coming in just on time because there is a major smartphone vendor, I won't say what its name is, that is about to launch its new model, and it's going to be a 5G model. And you guys are just about in for that. So I'm kind of wondering, we'll come to the rollout now in a minute, but I'm kind of wondering, do you think that Apple is going to bring anything to 5G that we haven't seen already? Because, it hasn't taken off as a must-have consumer get yet. And I'm wondering whether Apple will bring anything to the table on it.
I think definitely Apple will bring something to the table, but I would say not just Apple, but the general availability of more 5G handsets will play a huge part in the success of 5G. We're launching now, and we're launching with a good portfolio of 5G handsets. We have 5 different handsets, 3 Samsungs and 2 Huawei 5G phones. But what we're seeing now is between now and Christmas, lots and lots of manufacturers are issuing 5G handsets and a much broader range of 5G handsets. And that's what will make 5G really accessible to customers, because it can't just be the flagship devices that support 5G. It's got to be the full range.
Yeah, but do you think that it's just going to be that people will buy a handset that happens to have 5G because that's the new handset, whether it's flagship or mid-range? Or I'm wondering whether somebody is who's the first manufacturer or service provider that's going to come out with a real solid reason. I mean, Apple thinks it's augmented reality. That's why it's playing around with things like LiDAR cameras on its iPad Pros. It's when Tim Cook was over here at the beginning of the year, I interviewed him at the time, but the one startup he chose to visit at the time was a games company here, which specializes kind of in role-playing games with an augmented reality twist on. So that's what they think it's going to happen. So I've no doubt we'll hear about that from them. But I'm just wondering whether there's anything else that might push 5G from that perspective.
I think, firstly, the general performance of 5G. So you're talking of speeds up to like a gigabit per second in your pocket. So that's going to play a huge part. I think gaming undoubtedly will play a big part because you get the latency benefits with 5G that you don't get. And I think over time we're going to see a big migration to cloud gaming. So it's not just going to be gaming where you've got an app or a client on your handset, but it will be straight cloud gaming, and that's going to play a very, very big part.
Yeah, we're arguably we're seeing that already with Xbox and a lot of the online service. Even Amazon last week launched a gaming service. Possibly one of the applications might be, and something that you guys are pretty strong in, people using 5G as a broadband device or a broadband substitute. Will you guys be? You've got quite a few 4G broadband customers around. Yeah. Will you also have 5G broadband customers?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So 5G will be an access technology supporting broadband as well. So we'll be launching 5G modems and fixed wireless access solutions as well, which will connect to 5G. There's so yeah, broadband will play a very, very big part. I think over time, as 5G coverage, gets deeper and deeper into the country, I think 5G will be a very logical access technology for the edge of the network for people to connect to broadband. And I think what we're seeing, just in a general sense, since the pandemic, we're seeing a huge demand for broadband connectivity in more and more remote places as people are working from home or moving to different areas to work.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken before about, I travel to North Mayo quite a lot, and the connectivity there actually isn't that bad. They've air ran some fiber around that area, but I'm not there often enough to pay a monthly 40 quid or 50 quid for fiber. So I got a Gomo SIM card. It could have been a 48 SIM card had you guys been selling the outrageous deal that you have at the moment, that 8 quid for 100 gigabytes a month, all calls, all texts. I mean, we may get to that, but that's just an unbelievable deal. But as a tenner at the time for 80 gigabytes, I just stick it in one of those Huawei mobile connectivity routers, and pretty much covers the house. And I'm only getting 15 megs, but I can actually run a TV. I can run a TV off that. I can run Amazon Prime Video, Netflix. So, yeah, maybe 5G could be a solution for a lot of people as they're waiting for the National Broadband Plan.
Oh, I think so, yeah. And we even saw it a lot during the summer with staycationers, lots and lots of traffic coming from holiday areas and people using mobile broadband to access all.
And you guys don't have any funny rules on things like personal hotspotting from your phones, do you?
No. It's
so in theory, I, as a savvy customer, who's determined to squeeze every last penny value out of my subscription, in theory, I could go get an all-you-can-eat 3 subscription, the cheapest one I can find, put it in a 5G handset, hotspot it, and then away I go.
Knock yourself out, and you can get fantastic speeds and fantastic experience. So, yeah.
I mean, you remember the days, I think back in the day, 3 might have had a rule against hotspotting. 1 or 2 other operators did as well. Understandably, why? You were all defending a dongle business, a mobile broadband dongle business. But I mean, I remember back in the day when it was almost like a secret that you knew how to, get broadband from your phone.
I find it strange. We have never, ever stopped anybody from tethering on their phone. It's always been 100% open on our network. And we have never charged anyone on all-you-can-eat data beyond.
That's a thing that I've often run afoul of some of your executives on, because I've waged a grumpy old man, one-man campaign over the last few years against all operators about fair use and what that means, and what it means in English versus what it means technically, and managing that and all that kind of stuff. One of the things I'm always saying is that an all-you-can-eat or unlimited is a stronger term than all-you-can-eat. You can kind of, it's a little bit vaguer if you say all-you-can-eat. But one of the point I often make is that it's not possible to have an unlimited supply of data, and that therefore I take issue with the term. But one of your colleagues, guy Colón McManus, every time I see him, I think he's going to strangle me, because he keeps telling me we've never cut anyone off, we've never charged anyone.
We never have. And, if you look at it, Adrian, we have absolutely been the data champions. So we offered all you can eat since we entered the market back in, I think it was 2007. We have never, ever charged anyone for going beyond kind of fair usage policies or anything like that. And as a consequence, our customers know this, we're taking 68% of all the mobile data on our network. So that's more than the other 2 operators.
How is that possible? Because so you, like, the last Comreg figures show that you've about 31% of the market, excluding mobile broadband and machine to machine. So that's regular people who take out subscriptions. Now, including mobile broadband, I think it's a bit more. So, but there must be. You have the highest number of mobile broadband customers. Is that it? Is that what takes you up to the 68%?
We have the highest number of mobile broadband customers, but also our customers use data with total freedom. We have no limitations on what our customers can do, and they know it and they use it. So all the things you talk about, like tethering or just constant use of mobile broadband, that happens every day on our network.
Yeah, I know of one or two people. Because anytime I write about this, I'll always get someone who comes back to me and say, well, I'm with, it's usually they'll say they're with 3, and they'll say, well, I'm using 600 or 700 gigs a month and never had a problem. Now, it's only one or two people who come back and tell me that, but you must see that across the network as well.
Oh, constantly, yeah. So we get some extremely heavy users, and then we get kind of, there's a whole different distribution of how people use the network. But certainly the tech-savvy people you use our data network and our all-you-can-eat data very, very extensively.
And do you think if you get a decent 5G signal, do you think that will cut it for gaming, for the likes of, for a lot of the stuff that people use gaming for?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
Because some of those updates can be huge.
Yeah, no, we see it, and we see it, when a new Fortnite update comes out, or Call of Duty or whatever, you see a spike of traffic on the network. But that's download. So that's download that's happening. The advantage for gaming in 5G is the real time. So for cloud gaming or just interactive gaming, where you need good speed, reliable connection, and low latency. If the latency is too high, you're dead. The kids, they don't really talk about the speed, they talk about the ping all the time.
Yeah.
And what 5G does is it brings very, very low latency into the network. So it opens up this whole world of possibilities where you can build new applications on a mobile network which really exploit these things. So, when you talk about, I don't know, smart cities or drivers or autonomous cars, that's all about latency and reliability. You have to have low latency or the cars crash. You have to have reliability or, it's not going to work. And it's all of these aspects that 5G bring into the equation.
One of the things that we all used to talk about as possible use for 5G was autonomous cars. I used to talk about it quite a lot 2 or 3 years ago. We haven't seen an awful lot in Ireland on that. They're still running quite a bit in the States. Has that kind of just calmed down, or are we seeing anything happening there?
I think certainly I'm not an expert in the area whatsoever, but certainly there was an awful lot of excitement about driverless cars to start with. And then it kind of shifted more towards autonomous cars. So when you're sitting in a lane and your car will keep you, 40 meters behind the car in front, depending on what speed you're doing, and it will keep you within your lane, and that's autonomous driving. I think for full autonomous driving, where you don't have a human intervention
no steering wheel
as a safety net. What you need is extremely reliable networks, and we're kind of at the start of that juncture where those reliable networks are being built now, and particularly by us.
I mean, realistically, how long do you think it would take because there are companies, including Tesla, that have 95% of the way there towards full autonomous vehicles. They're waiting for a mixture of regulatory go ahead and also the networks. From a networking point of view, how long do you think we are away, or is it waiting on more of a regulatory and a commercial model?
I think regulatory and risk are going to play a huge part as well. I've seen a lot of discussion about how risk works with driverless cars, and there's certainly a conundrum to be worked out there. I would expect that driverless or autonomous vehicles will start more in industrial applications. So we see, lots of, say, high risk mining type applications and stuff like that, where you don't need to send a driver with the vehicle, and you don't really have a risk exposure to third parties because you're working within a controlled area. So I would expect that that's where the evolutions will start first, and then it will move more into mainstream. But that is quite a number of years away.
Anytime I talk to just ordinary people about this, there's two reactions. One is, oh my God, I wouldn't trust it. What if it, knocks somebody out? The other, though, is, oh, I'd hate that. I love driving I don't want to sit in a driverless car. I want to drive my car. Now, I'm about the right age and stereotypical profile to share that view, like to be the middle-aged bloke. Oh, I want to drive my, whatever, Audi or whatever. I can't wait for driverless cars. I can't wait to be able to sit in the car and let it do the hell whatever it wants and let me focus on something else. And there'd be no breaking the lights and there'd be no trying to inch ahead, ahead of anybody else. What do you think? Are you a driver?
I'm a driver, yeah, and I do school runs and lots of different deliveries. I'm all for it.
Well, you see, you wouldn't have to do a school run.
Exactly.
Why would you have to do the school run?
Absolutely, that's the point.
Yeah. I remember when this topic first came up. It was actually at CES in Las Vegas when I first saw my first demonstration, and I was doing a piece on it from Vegas. So how am I going to make this more interesting? And at the time, Michael Healy-Rae had been talking about the threat to rural pubs and rural way of life. So I rang him up from Vegas. I said, Michael, they're after introducing this new concept, and I want to know what you think. And here's why I think it might be relevant to you. Because imagine you have an autonomous vehicle and you live 9 miles away from the pub. You can now go to the pub. You can get your fill of 5 or 6 pints and come back no problem. You can have 20 pints if you want.
Well, that's certainly an application. Yeah.
Of course, that's if we're ever allowed out again.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a separate issue there. Just moving back to one of the things that I've been writing about, we've touched on it once before, as this issue of the 5G conspiracy theories. You've now launched a 5G network. Some of your competitor networks have experienced difficulties with conspiracy theorists turning up at sites, and you see it on Facebook. There are Facebook groups all the time, and not just kind of mad hatters. It's now spreading into a kind of one of my colleagues in the paper did a really interesting piece on this. It's now spreading into kind of wellness and alternative medicine kind of groups. People who would ordinarily be, you would never expect them to pay heed to stuff like this, and they're giving it a little bit of attention because somebody is coming at it from a sort of a health or wellness point of view. Are you expecting any difficulties there?
We're certainly, have to be prepared, and we have to take care of our staff who maintain the sites, and we have to take care of our staff who build the sites. Look, everything we do is consistent and compliant with the International Commission for Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, ICNIRP.
But you see, they think that's all. They think that's all a load of codswallop and a load of conspiracy, and the establishment looking after themselves.
Some people do. But it's fully endorsed by the WHO. And if you think of the world we live in with the pandemic happening and science deniers, we have to be in a position where we follow the science. And what we're doing here is following the science. And I think it's very interesting that over the last 6 months, I've seen a huge change in the whole zeitgeist towards conspiracy theories. And an awful lot of people are actually pushing back on this now, whereas you had a silent majority previously. You've got a much, much more vocal majority now who are supportive of it. And I think the imperative to get very, very good connectivity in the country, both in terms of economic growth, but also supporting people during the pandemic, and when people have to work from home and have to, have to communicate and live in a different way. I think that has certainly swung the pendulum back more towards the science and the sensible approach to how to roll out a 5G network.
Well, I hope you're right. And I've engaged once or twice with some of those on the other side. It's quite easy just to sit back and kind of slag them off, which I have done. I have done that before. It doesn't really work, though, because what happens is a lot of them will just retreat into a community and say, well, of course he's going to say that because he's either A, paid off by the big interests, or he is part of some cushy sort of number and he doesn't want proper inquiry into this, etc., etc. I tried something different actually last week. There was somebody, they were going on about, there was a kind of a anti-5G, anti-mask common theme going on. And I tried to engage with one of them. And first I got all the insults under the sun, right? You're a disgrace to the human race, all that sort of. But I ignored it and I said, well, look, can you just let me know what your concerns are? And about half an hour later, he had totally calmed down and he was starting to open up to what his concerns are. Now, I didn't really go that far down that road because I was just busy. I had other stuff to do. But I do have a suspicion that had I tried, and this is going to sound very condescending and patronizing, but almost like a missionary or something, almost like someone who's like trying to outreach. I suspect that I might have had a better chance of giving him a little bit of a different point of view or persuading him, rather than just tossing zingers at him or worse, retweeting him and saying, look at this, Spaceball, you know?
No, well, I wouldn't suggest for a second that the concerns people have aren't genuine concerns, and most people are very, very rational. So I would say engagement and dialogue is very important, but also trust in your institutions. So, you know, we have the World Health Organization, we have the EPA in Ireland who are responsible for communications, and I really, really think people need to trust in these institutions that they are looking after people's best interests, and you know they are ensuring that we comply with the science and comply with it.
I think the main problem here is a lack of trust. I think there's a feeling that some people have of isolation and alienation, and where you and I trust the World Health Organization, there's a small percentage of people who, for whatever reason, have found themselves, they just don't trust what authorities are telling them. They don't trust what they see or read in the media. And as a result, like as part of that conversation last week, I asked kind of provocatively whether this person believed the moon landings happened. I shouldn't have asked that. That's provocative. But what I was wondering was, are they generally skeptical about everything the authorities tell them? Because there's a big crossover there between 5G, masks, is the pandemic a hoax? There's all that kind of stuff. But there must be a reason why there's a consistent niche minority who really are attracted to this sort. And I think it's alienation. I think it's isolation. I think for some reason they feel detached from, they're being ignored, or they don't feel that they're participating in society. It's just a personal theory, but anyway, it's a roundabout way of saying on the 5G hoax stuff. Back now, I'm trying not to be pejorative about it and trying to maybe engage a little bit more. You know? Yeah,
no, I think engagement is good, and again, I think you have to take people at face value, and if people have concerns, it's important to help people to allay those concerns.
Yeah. You've got quite a few 5G sites. I think it's 315 right now, 35% population. You're talking about more than doubling that for next year.
Yeah.
But what struck me was that your 5G distribution, it's not just in urban areas. And for a new network rollout, that's not typical. I mean, with 4G, it mostly was in urban areas and town locations first. Why have you chosen this route instead?
So, firstly, we are doing the cities, but it's not exclusively the cities. We've got coverage in every county in the country. A number of years ago, the spectrum that we're using, the C-band spectrum that we use to support 5G, was auctioned. We bought a full national allocation, so 100 megahertz to support customers across the entire country, and not offer a differentiated service in the cities. Our competitors didn't take the same approach as that. So it was always our intention to roll out 5G, and we believe 5G is very, very transformative technology and will be the base technology in our network for the next 10 years or however long. So we believe in 5G and we believe it's very important. With the pandemic, we did see a very, very large shift in traffic within the network. So lots of traffic came out of the city centres and moved into suburban areas or towns or rural areas. And we can see where the traffic is in our network. We can see where our customers are using it. And we're really trying to get the best coverage of the existing customers.
So did you notice then as any type of significant shift in terms of the traffic out from more central areas into suburban or
Oh, very much so, yeah.
exurbiters?
Almost overnight, like 13th of March was when it all happened. And all of a sudden the traffic exploded on the network. So it was up to a huge amount. Both voice traffic was up about like 40% overnight or something. Data traffic was up. So we took lots and lots of steps to make sure that everything stayed stable and worked. But also, not only was the traffic up, it was in different places, completely different places to where it had been previously. So we redirected our rollout programs. We put in lots of additional capacity into areas where all of a sudden we had massive jump, and we dealt with it. And I think that certainly informed some of our 5G rural rollout as well.
Okay, so you were looking at patterns of data consumption, and you were working that into your predictions of what might happen over the next year to 18 months?
Yeah, we like it. It's really important that we see where the demand is in the network, so we can be dimensioned in all the right areas to support that demand.
I talk to other companies sometimes, like Big Tech, for example, a few months ago, made a decision that they weren't going to do any business travel until summer of 2021. And they made that decision like in May.
Yeah.
As a fairly big company, are you having to make those kind of, is that what you have just described in terms of provisioning for where you see, modeling for where you see the traffic coming? Are you looking that far ahead? Are you making a calculation that, well, there's going to be work for home for the next year or so, therefore we are going to need more capacity in those areas? Yeah,
so certainly, like, I think everyone is learning as they go along with how things have changed. It was very good that the big tech companies made their call early, because lots of those people will be using our network as well. So we can see there is going to be a kind of a constancy to this that maybe we didn't know about it at the start. We have our rollout plan. We've the 315 sites. We have plans for an additional 500 sites by the end of next year, and all these factors feed into what we're doing. And then we're launching the service today, but we will see the uptake and where the demand is and where we need to prioritize, based on how it's used, etc., and customer feedback.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's about as much as I wanted to ask you, David. Do you think? Oh, there's one other area I wanted to talk to you about. I remember what it was. Value in the market. I mentioned 48 earlier on, and I've been writing quite a lot about it. I wrote a lot about Gomo, Air's sub-brand, when it came out last year. We're kind of in an extraordinary situation at the moment in terms of what you can get in the Irish market. I mean, we're all used to narratives in Ireland about being ripped off or, it's cheaper elsewhere. I'm not aware that it's really cheaper anywhere else in the English-speaking world now than Ireland to get certainly a mobile operator plan. I mean, I'm looking at the UK, where 3 is a major player. It's not as cheap. We've better deals here. What's going on? Why have we arrived at this situation here?
So 48, it is. You're absolutely right. It's not an absolute humdinger of an offer. It's a limited.
I mean, €8. That's kind of discretional income. I mean,
it's €8. Yeah. It's a SIM only, self-serve type model. Economically, it works for us, and
But isn't everything, like, if you get a SIM only plan at the moment, everything is self-serve at the moment. You can't go into a shop. Well, you can. Sorry,
you can actually, and you do have a contact center supporting you. And you have a different level of service on the more normal tariffs. We believe the world is changing. We believe the world is going online. We believe connectivity will be commoditized, into the future, and it's very important that we can be nimble, be agile, offer these types of services in a way that's kind of similar to other OTT type services where you go on.
Do you ever land in the States and you're in the airport and you think, right, okay, I need to get a local SIM for data here because the roaming, I don't want to do the roaming. And you can get 10 gigabytes for $90. What? And every time, now obviously I haven't been to the States in a while, But it was particularly when you land in the States, you realize how expensive it is there and how cheap it is here.
Yeah, we've got a very, very competitive market. Everyone's got to fight and everyone's got to be fit and win in the marketplace. So, it's incumbent on operators to, to be able to support these types of applications and offerings into the future.
Yeah. I mean, often operators will grumble and say, from a regulatory perspective, this is a race to the bottom, we're being driven down. We can't, this is leading to a situation where we're not going to be able to sustain investment in the networks. I don't really hear that much along those lines from the operators anymore. Is that mode of thinking kind of gone, or is it just that nobody likes to hear it?
I think probably a bit of both.
Okay.
Look, certainly everyone has regulatory challenges, and you work with your regulator to find a good way of progressing. An awful lot of our regulation comes as part of European codes, and we're compliant. So it's generally similar regulation to what we see in other marketplaces. But we do, of course, work with regulators to try and ensure that we have, a pro-investment balance in place that will allow us to fund things like the 5G rollout. We're spending 100 million a year on our network. And, if you think of other industries, we don't really change our prices. Price competition in the market is very, very high, but we do invest a lot to offer more every year. So whilst you used to get so much speed last year, you get more speed this year, and you use the network more this year. So it's really, really important for us to work with regulator to ensure that we can keep investing into the future.
Fair enough. Well, listen, thank you very much for coming on the show today, David. Appreciate it. Best of luck with your rollout. I'm sure I'll be giving you guys a hard time, so I'm going to give all of them a hard time in no time at all. But thank you very much.
As long as you're fair.
For coming on the show. It's David Hennessy, the CTO of 3 Ireland. And that's all we have time for this week. From me, Adrian Weckler, tech editor of the Irish and Sunday Independent. Thank you very much for tuning in, listening and watching. And I'll talk to you at the same time next week. Bye-bye.